of the University of Alberta Hospital Foundation to share some really exciting news about the Brain Centre here at the U of A. The University of Alberta Hospital is, of course, a major part of our healthcare system, not just for Alberta, but in fact for all of Western Canada. We receive patients here from Manitoba to the Yukon. And the Neurosciences Intensive Care Unit is one of only two facilities like it in Canada. But this year, the 40-year-old ICU is in need of a serious update. And through Alberta's recovery plan, Alberta's government is expanding healthcare capacity in part with record investments in building and modernizing healthcare, including our hospitals. These historic investments are expanding healthcare across the province, like, for example, Calgary's Cancer Centre, the new Red Deer Hospital for Central Alberta, a new maternity clinic and health clinic way up north in Lacrete, new operating rooms at the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, more money for EMS services, and of course Alberta's Surgical Wait Times Initiative, which has already brought wait times down for several procedures. And I look forward to an exciting announcement about more progress on that front tomorrow. But we're here today to announce an expanded neurosciences intensive care unit here at the University of Alberta Hospital Brain Centre, with an $81 million taxpayer investment to more than double the current number of beds, in conjunction with $17 million being gifted from the University Hospital Foundation. You know, the COVID pandemic showed us that the entire Canadian healthcare system does not have enough capacity. In fact, Alberta went into COVID with the lowest per capita number of ICU beds in Canada, despite having the second most expensive system on a relative basis. I just repeat that. We went into this with the lowest per capita number of ICU beds with one of the country's best funded systems. And frankly, that means we were not able to provide the care that we needed when we reached the peaks of COVID without widespread postponement of surgeries. Now, that is why Alberta's government is so focused on delivering more hospital capacity, funded by our nearly $2 billion increase in the baseline budget for health in Alberta. Now, one small part of that, and a hugely important part, is our vision of building 50 new permanent staffed intensive care beds. And a couple of weeks ago, we announced that we've already achieved the first threshold, 19 of those beds fully opened, fully staffed, and we're well on track to adding another 31 intensive care beds that will be fully staffed and operating in the province by September, so we can better cope with significant spikes in healthcare demand, especially for critical care. The speed at which we are moving is a sign of how important this is to Alberta. More ICU beds will bring peace of mind to care teams and will give doctors and nurses the space and capacity, the equipment that they need to deal with future surges when we face them. These new specialized ICU beds here at the Brain Centre are another step forward in building new spaces to deal with Alberta's capacity crunch. And when this project is completed and these beds open, it'll be able to deliver specialized intensive care in a world-class, state-of-the-art facility. I want to take a moment to thank Jody Abbott and her team at the University Hospital Foundation for all of the amazing work that they do. You've been tremendous partners in this project, and the money that you raise makes a real impact in the lives of Albertans. So again, thank you to the Foundation and to all of your generous donors in the community, I think some of whom are joining us here today, for supporting excellence in healthcare in Alberta. Minister Panda will provide more details on construction, but I'll just say that I'm pleased to begin, it will begin soon, and that the funding commitments are in place thanks to our balanced budget 2022. I'll now turn it over to Health Minister Jason Copping to provide his remarks. We'll hear from others, and then we'll take questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here at the University of Alberta Hospital, home to the Brain Center and the Neuro ICU. This facility provides state-of-the-art care for patients with brain-related health issues. I'm here to announce funding for a construction project, a very exciting one. But what we're really here to talk about is the people who work here and the incredible work that they do every day. So I want to start by thanking the healthcare professionals who are here today and who work in the Brain Center and every other healthcare facility in our province. You give your patients care that is second to none in the world, including through 2 years of COVID-19. There's no such thing as an easy day in an ICU, and the pandemic has put the whole health system through the ringer for the past 2 years, particularly in the ICUs. So again, thank you to all healthcare workers for standing by each other through it all, for standing by your patients, and providing phenomenal care. We owe you a debt of gratitude, and I'm so glad to be here today to do something for you on behalf of all Albertans, and that's to announce a new, up-to-date neuro ICU with more than twice the beds found in the current unit. It is urgently needed, and I know it's been a long time coming, so I'm honored to be the health minister who gets to say it. A new ICU is finally coming. The Brain Center and the Neuro ICU in particular is part of the identity of this hospital as one of Canada's leading academic medical centers and one of its leading trauma centers. Nearly 1 in every 8 admissions here at the hospital is brain-related. The U of A neurosciences team give the most advanced care in the country to patients with life-threatening conditions such as strokes, neurological infections, head injuries, and tumors, the best chance of treatment and of recovery. You need a physical space that helps you do it instead of getting in your way, and we are going to build it. The Government of Alberta, as mentioned by the Premier, has committed a total of $81 million to this project, including $50 million over 3 years in the 2022 capital plan. The new Neuro ICU will have 24 spaces, more than double the current 11 spaces. There'll be bigger spaces with room for a wider range of equipment at the bedside. They'll be private. We're going to all single rooms. That's better for the patients, and it's better for the family because you care for the whole family here. And 18 of the new spaces will be designed for enhanced infection prevention and control. This project wouldn't be possible without our partners. So I want to echo what the Premier has said and give my thanks to the University Hospital Foundation for their commitment throughout this project, including their latest contribution of $17 million. The hospital foundations are an important partner in Alberta. We appreciate their dedication, vision, and passion to advance patient care. With this project and many others, they're helping us deliver on our commitment to Albertans, a stronger publicly funded health system with better access to care. We need to support the system to recover from the pandemic, but we need to do much more. We need to build a system that's better than we had before, with more capacity and better access to care. To do that, we're building up the health workforce right across the system, from EMS to surgery to ICU to continuing care and home care. And we're investing in projects like this one. I believe deeply in the promise of our publicly funded health system. The care you need, when you need it, for everyone. The pandemic has tested the system, and it continues to test it. We're seeing a wave of patients in emergency. Volumes were low for most of the past 2 years, and now people are coming in. That's straining EMS and emergency here and across the country. But we'll get through it, thanks to the dedication of people who work in our hospitals and across the system. And we'll keep building an even better healthcare system here at the U of A and across our entire province. And on that note, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Minister Panda. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Copping. Good afternoon, everyone, and belated happy birthday to the Premier of Alberta, and thank you for your public service, sir. Budget 2022 is moving Alberta forward by focusing on strengthening and increasing capacity in our healthcare and continuing care systems, getting more Albertans working and bringing our finances back into the black. As part of Alberta's recovery plan, we are investing in critical health facility infrastructure projects to address the need to increase the capacity. This includes funding for a new ICU Neurosciences Center, intensive care unit, at the University of Alberta Brain Center. This year's budget has provided full funding of $50 million over the next 3 years for this important project. I'm extremely proud that the Infrastructure Ministry is overseeing the construction of this very important project and a complex project. I know my boss Premier reminds me about on time, on budget on every project. This particular one, there is a bit of complexity because it's an operating hospital. We had to decant. So no pressure on Minister Copping or the new CEO, interim CEO. As soon as they hand over the work front, so we'll create the work front and get it done sooner. When this project is completed, it will significantly enhance the delivery of the life-saving services to Albertans, residents of northeastern British Columbia and the Northwest Territories. Building in an active care facility, as I said, always presents unique challenges during construction, as a number of variables need to be taken into consideration. To minimize the discomfort of patients, staff, and the delivery of life-saving services, while ensuring we complete the job on time, on budget. These are challenges our project people and contractors readily accept, and I'm not hesitant to say they have a great track record in meeting those challenges. The detailed design work is well underway and is expected to be completed later this year, with the construction plan to get underway in 2023. We estimate that this project will support approximately 550 well-paying construction and construction-related jobs. New and modernized health facility projects like this important one are happening throughout Alberta. This is part of the $21 billion capital investment we are making in the next 3 years on vital social and economic infrastructure projects throughout Alberta. These projects are a critical part of Alberta's recovery plan to grow our economy and keep Albertans working and support jobs. Every infrastructure and construction-related project is supporting good-paying jobs in their communities for local workers. Infrastructure projects are building communities, boosting local economies, supporting jobs, and attracting investment into our communities, making Alberta a destination for companies to relocate, bringing new jobs and opportunities, helping move Alberta and Albertans like everyone here forward to a prosperous future, positioning Alberta to be a vital part in a bright and thriving future that will firmly secure our place as the economic engine of Canada. Thank you. Now I would like to invite interim CEO Mauro Kies to come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Panda. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mauro Kies, and I'm the interim president and CEO for Alberta Health Services, and I'm very pleased to be here and share in this celebration today. Today's announcement of a new neuro ICU is an important step for patients and families who are dealing with brain illness and trauma. Those patients are some of the most fragile in the hospital, recovering from brain injury or dealing with life-threatening neurological illness such as traumatic brain injury, stroke, and spinal cord injuries. It can be a particularly difficult healthcare journey for families, since brain trauma is one of the rare conditions that can affect your loved one's personality and how they behave. Having the right support in a well-designed unit can help ensure families have the privacy and space they need while their loved one heals. This funding commitment from the Alberta government, along with incredible support from the University Hospital Foundation, will help us improve patient care and will mean a better experience for all of our families. Good brain health is critical to overall health. We're very fortunate to have a foundation that recognizes that. Over the past several years, the University Hospital Foundation and its donors have helped make various projects possible within our brain center, helping provide the best possible outcomes to our patients and our families. Things like Canada's only stroke ambulance, where patients can receive clot-busting drugs within minutes, preserving valuable brain tissue after a stroke. The Scott and Brown family's advanced imaging and gamma knife gives patients the ability to receive painless, scalpel-free brain surgery, and several advances in minimally invasive brain cancers. Still, there are many patients who will require a very high level of care that can only be delivered in a neuro ICU. Our ICU team provides extraordinary care for those vulnerable patients, and they're doing it in a space that was cutting edge when it was built about 40 years ago. Even with the limitations and space restrictions on the current unit, the site is a national leader in neurocritical care. We're immensely proud of the work that our teams do, and we're immensely grateful for the opportunity this redevelopment will bring, allowing us to bring state-of-the-art care in a space that is designed for patients and families in mind. Individual patient rooms will mean families can stay with their loved ones and will have the privacy that they need in those difficult days. It will mean improved infection prevention and control measures and a quieter space for patients to heal. I would like to say thank you to our incredibly talented team in the neurosciences program, including our multidisciplinary staff, physicians, and surgeons, and to all of you and our patients and families. I'd like to say thank you to our partners at Alberta Health and the University Hospital Foundation for their ongoing commitment to help AHS provide timely, high-quality care for patients and family. Thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Jody Abbott, President and CEO of the University Hospital Foundation, to share a few words.
Thank you so much, Mauro. Premier Kenney, Minister Copping, Minister Panda, and Alberta Health Services leadership. It's wonderful to be here on such a sunny, beautiful day. And past Chair Dave Finley at the back there, thank you for joining us, and everyone else who's come today. Unfortunately, our board chair, Joette Kaur, could not be with us today, but just wanted to say how pleased she is that we are celebrating this today. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of Treaty 6 territory, and pleased to recognize the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have made our community rich by their teachings, contributions, and presence. I'm here today on behalf of thousands of Albertans whose generous gifts to the University Hospital Foundation's Brain Centre campaign played a critical role in making this day possible. Community leaders like Jim Brown and Guy Scott, the campaign cabinet co-chairs, worked diligently to bring the best brain care to Edmonton, and they matched this effort with their own transformational gifts of financial support from their families. Thank you very much. Dr. Keith Aronic, former department head of neurosciences at the University of Alberta Hospital, was an undisputed driving force behind the campaign. It's really nice to see you, Dr. Aronic. And Ken and Leona Biggs, we could not have done this without you. The Leona and Kenneth Biggs and Dr. Peter Allen Neurosciences Intensive Care Unit is a reality. Ken, I'm so glad that you could be with us here today, and I know Leona is here with us in spirit. She would be so proud to see the Neuro ICU moving forward to enhance care for Albertans and beyond. Of the $70 million raised for the Brain Centre campaign, initially $12 million was designated for the development of the Neuro ICU. I would like to thank Premier Kenney, Minister Coppings and Panda, and the Government of Alberta for your support of the Neuro ICU. We believe building a new Neuro ICU was never a nice to have. It is essential. It is critical. And Ken Biggs, one of our key donors, asked me to share this with you. It was Confucius who several thousand years ago said that consistency of purpose is what leads to success. From Doctors Peter Allen and Keith Aronic, and to all assembled following years of dedication, sight was never lost on providing this hospital with the facilities dedicated to the special needs of patients following brain trauma. Thank you, Premier, for ensuring this enhanced facility is available to enrich and save lives of Albertans. This partnership with the Government of Alberta, Alberta Health Services, and the University Hospital Foundation will ensure that we remain at the forefront of care. In support of today's announcement, the University Hospital Foundation is increasing our commitment by an additional $5 million, bringing the total community support for this project to $17 million. We are grateful that with the leadership of the Government of Alberta and the incredible generosity of our donors, the Neuro ICU at the University Hospital is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. That concludes the formal speaking portion of today's event. We're going to move on to our media Q&A. I see we have some media here in person. If you have a question, please line up at the mic, and we'll go with one question, one follow-up. Go ahead, Janet.
Janet French from the CBC for the Premier. What do you think of Travis Taves entering the UCP leadership race? Would you say that he is your chosen successor, and why or why not?
Well, I just received a call from him last night indicating his intention to pursue the leadership and step aside as finance minister. He's done a fantastic job in that role. I will not be endorsing any candidates for the leadership. It's, I think, entirely normal for a leader to avoid endorsing candidates, and it'll be for the members of the United Conservative Party to assess the candidates once they have a full field to make the decision of who they think can best lead the party and province in the future.
Sorry, has Minister Taves formally resigned from Cabinet then? And if so, who is the interim or new finance minister?
I received his letter of resignation just before coming here, and I'll be making a decision about how to handle a successor in the interim period. I anticipate there may be some other additional departures from Executive Council for people who will offer their names for the leadership of my party. And so my current thinking is perhaps to have interim ministers acting in those capacities until I know what the complete lay of the land is in terms of Executive Council going into the leadership race, so I can make a small cabinet shuffle. But at this point, I'm looking at more interim positions until I know how many ministers may be stepping out.
Go ahead, Shailen.
Thank you. Shailen Skalski with CTV News. A question for the Premier as well. Kind of just following in that vein, it's no secret you faced a lot of division and dissent during your time as leader. I'm told by both rural and urban Albertans that division goes beyond the handling of the pandemic. I'm wondering if you can tell me, do you believe that this party that you helped to unite can stay together? If so, how? What advice do you have for your predecessor?
Well, yes, I do. And I do think it'll be a lot easier to do that outside of the COVID context. This is a government that has made enormous progress. We have delivered on nearly 90% of the promises we made Albertans in the last election, focused on economic growth, job creation, balancing the budget, restoring investor confidence, so that we could have the fiscal and economic strength to invest in important public services, like we're doing here today with the $81 million historic investment in a new Neuro ICU at the University of Alberta Hospital Brain Centre. So that things like this are affordable because of economic growth. And economic growth does not happen by accident. We are seeing not just strong commodity prices, but tremendous diversification from high tech to agriculture, from film and television to petrochemicals, from hydrogen to manufacturing. Record year of exports, of manufacturing, of energy production, of venture capital investment. So Alberta's hit its stride, but in the middle of that, we had the 2 tough years of COVID, and there's no secret that many freedom-loving, conservative-oriented Albertans resisted and disliked public health restrictions. And it was very clear in the leadership review that we had a number of people who are very hostile to vaccines. And they made their statement on May the 18th. I respect that, and I just hope that the leadership election and my successor will focus not on issues like that, but on the priorities of Albertans, like economic growth, so we can make sustainable investments in critical public services.
Yeah, switching gears for my follow-up a little bit, I wanted to ask about the Pytel report that you ordered, I think, over 6 months ago. I'm wondering if you can tell us what the status of the report is, have you received it, and when some of the findings will be made public?
Well, in fact, I was just briefed about that earlier today, and I understand that my office will be releasing a summary of the report very soon, and that all ministers of Executive Council have signed an undertaking to renew their commitment to a safe and respectful workplace, that the political staff in the Executive Council side of the government are being given a refreshed and updated policy guideline for how to deal with concerns or complaints about workplace respect. I'll remind you that our government was the first in Alberta history to bring in mandatory workplace respect training for all public servants, all elected officials, and all political staff. That's been administered by I believe it's called the Respect Foundation, founded by Sheldon Kennedy. And so we've already had that mandatory training in place. The report points to areas where we can provide greater clarity to political staff about where to bring a complaint, of what nature, and how that should be handled by their managers. So I think it will be helpful in clarifying how best to handle complaints about workplace culture, workplace respect, and as I say, a summary of that will be released very soon.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, Premier. Rachel Emanuel with the Western Standard. I just wanted to go back to your comments on interim ministers for a second. So are you going to wait until more names come forward to announce interim ministers, or are you going to announce who the interim ministers are as resignations come?
Well, the moment that a minister resigns, there is a acting minister who has their delegated statutory authority under the relevant legislation, and that's a public document. But my intention is that if we have people departing Executive Council for this leadership race, that I would initially appoint an interim acting minister until I know what the lay of the land is, because I don't want to end up having to do several potential mini shuffles, if you will. So I've looked at the precedents. I always like to be governed by the convention and tradition in our Westminster system, and the tradition is typically to do it just this way, which would be to appoint interim ministers until I know what the lay of the land is in terms of any overall changes to Executive Council, and that should be fairly clear, I suspect, in a matter of weeks.
Sure. And then for my follow-up, the Western Standard reported last week that UCP MLA Brian Jean challenged his colleague to a fight at a caucus meeting following your announcements about your intentions to resign. Jean has also said he intends to run for your job. I'm wondering if you can comment on this. Are you concerned about Jean's ability to unify the UCP, something you named as a reason for your resignation, given the discord he appears to be causing among your caucus?
Well, I wasn't there during that caucus meeting. I just made a brief statement and then absented myself, so I can't comment on that, and nor would I, even if I had been there, because of caucus confidentiality. And I'm not going to be commenting on current or prospective leadership candidates. It would be inappropriate for me to do so, but good try. And my apologies, by the way, to everybody at the U of A that we're veering way off topic, but that's how these things go.
Thank you, Premier. With that, we're going to go to the phones. Operator, can you please put through our first caller?
Rick Bell, Calgary Sun.
Good afternoon, Premier. I'd like to just ask you a very direct question, which is, now that you're, going to be departing as Premier in the coming months, when you reflect back, what, if anything, would you have done differently in order that you would not be faced with the decision you had to make on May 18th? Well, just looking over your 3 years.
Sure.
Is there anything you would have done differently than what you did?
Well, Rick, I think the energy in the no vote was primarily driven by people angry about vaccines. And I make no apology for promoting safe and effective vaccines that have saved lives. There was also a lot of residual anger about public health restrictions. And while I guess we could go back and nitpick about particular policies at particular times, generally I do not regret the difficult decisions we made to prevent a total catastrophe in our hospitals. There is a small but highly motivated, well-organized, and very angry group of people who believe that I and the government have been promoting are part of some globalist agenda, and that the vaccines are at the heart of that. And I frankly don't think most of these people have ever before been involved in a mainstream center-right party, and I suspect many of them won't be in the future. So that's just the context in which we've been operating. But I don't regret at all having led a government that has already, within 3 years, delivered on 90% of our election commitments to Alberta, that has balanced the budget for the first time in 14 years, that has cut taxes, that has brought unprecedented, last year's nearly $70 billion of investment to the province, whose policies are leading to the greatest boom in diversification from tech to film to agriculture to forestry. I don't regret any of that. I don't regret having stood up strongly for this province, having filed a constitutional challenge of the federal No More Pipelines law and won at the Supreme Court of Canada. I don't regret having defended our oil and gas industry and see its strong recovery as the largest part of Alberta's economy. So I think Conservatives are and should be proud of those achievements. But clearly, COVID was, and it's turned out that the vaccines have become, have created a highly motivated group of people who are focused on that almost as a single issue, and I just fundamentally disagree with that perspective.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Rick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the answer, Premier. With all due respect, though, your popularity rating. Now, I know polls are polls, but consistently among them, your popularity rating has been very low. And in fact, 2 polls last week showed that the UCP, in fact, enjoyed a small bump in popularity after polling done after the May 18th announcement. I mean, how do you account for the fact that your popularity numbers were not that good? That can't just be all COVID, can it?
Well, Rick, what I was describing is a small but intense group of folks who got involved in this in the no vote, motivated primarily by their anger and hostility to vaccines. We know that is a fact. We had a huge number of people sign up who'd never before been members of the UCP, the Wild Rose, or the PC party, and who I think most of whom probably inhabited or supported parties on the fringe right that we've always had in Alberta. But it's an open party, and that's possible. Just like in previous years, we had a union have a disproportionate impact on a party leadership vote. I can tell you that in the real high-quality public opinion polling that we do, that was bang on in terms of the last election results, the party I lead has been a majority government territory with a plurality of public support now for several months. And I think as we move, as COVID continues to recede as a as a widespread public health threat in the rearview mirror, as people move beyond the restrictions, I think, and as the economy continues to grow, quite naturally we see more support returning to the government. And as well as policies responding to public priorities like eliminating the gas tax a few weeks ago. So I think we're in a good position. We need to continue focusing on those cost of living issues, and we'll do so. And I will just point out to you, Rick, that some of the pollsters to whom you are referring were off in predicting the results of the last election by 15 and 20 points. If you take them as an objective metric of Alberta politics, I would call that journalistic malpractice. But I would also say that, polls move around. It looks like my friend Doug Ford is set to win a large majority government with the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario today, and that's after he went through the better part of 2 years of high levels of unpopularity, trailing other parties. So I think the party I lead is in a good position, and I'm looking forward to, as the Premier, maintaining continuity and stability during this period.
Thank you, Premier. We have time for two more. Operator, can you please put through our second last caller?
William Smith, Globe and Mail. Oh, hi there. My question is also for Premier Kenney. I'm just wondering, or I wanted to get your reaction on BC moving to decriminalize small amounts of hard drugs. Obviously, that announcement was made just now, so it's about 2.5 grams of these illicit substances like fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and meth that are now going to be legalized come 2023.
Yeah. First of all, I would point out this is a violation of a campaign commitment given by the Prime Minister in the federal election just last year, where he said that his government would not do this. We have not been consulted, nor have any of the provinces apart from BC that I know of, and yet this will have national implications. There is no doubt that we are dealing with a opioid and addictions crisis, which is why Alberta has made unprecedented investments in providing a continuum of care with increased support for people coping with addictions. That continuum of care involves a responsible degree of harm reduction programs, but also a massive expansion of treatment and recovery opportunities. We've opened 8,000 new spaces, publicly funded spaces for drug addiction treatment, and we've eliminated fees for coming into government-funded programs. We're building 5 long-term residential treatment facilities to give a real opportunity for people with addictions to restore the health in their lives. We have brought in and expanded the virtual opioid drug replacement program, which is helping to save lives, particularly in rural Alberta, and many more actions to follow. But I am concerned. Look, we have had in many of the country's urban core areas, like the downtown east side of Vancouver, and arguably parts of downtown Edmonton and Calgary, we have had de facto decriminalization of simple possession of narcotics for several years. There are a tiny number of charges and prosecutions laid against people for simple possession. In fact, since 2017, 50% of people who fatally overdosed in Alberta spent time in a provincial correctional centre in the 2 years prior to their death. We've done this statistical research, and 80% of them were in jail for non-drug related offenses, and the remaining 20% were there for drug trafficking, not possession, but trafficking offenses. They were drug dealers. Since 2017, less than 5 people who were arrested and sent to jail for simple possession died of an overdose. And so the notion that decriminalizing drugs will have a significant effect on the overdose crisis is not supported by the data. We are concerned about the message that this sends, that it will take the de facto decriminalization of possession in urban core areas and spread that right across society, certainly in the case of British Columbia. So we'll be watching that very closely, and Alberta's government will do what's necessary to support people coping with addictions, but also to maintain public safety. We can see here on the streets of downtown Edmonton, we can see very clearly the consequences that addiction can have in terms of social order and public safety. Finally, I would strongly urge the federal government to instead focus its efforts on the interdiction of dangerous and lethal drugs onto our streets that are being brought in. We know that many of the constituent elements of fentanyl and carfentanil come out of black market factories, and in China they're transshipped by cartels out of Mexico through the United States and into Canada. And there are other obvious sources. But we've seen no effort by the Government of Canada to increase resources for the Canada Border Services Agency to increase efforts to interdict these poisonous drugs.
Thank you, and go ahead with your follow-up.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify some of the points that you made there. So you're saying that you believe Alberta and other provinces should have been consulted on this? And then when you say this will have national implications, can you just expand a bit further on that, please?
Well, obviously, this is a slippery slope. And I mean, we've gone from the Prime Minister saying 7 months ago that he would not even consider this to legalizing hard drugs in a province of 5 million people right next door to us. So I don't think it's hard to see where this is going. And where it's going, I believe, is in a counterproductive direction. We would welcome a discussion with the federal government about stronger efforts to interdict lethal drugs, about how massively to increase treatment and recovery support for people coping with addictions, but also to look seriously at the actual data. If we think that decriminalization of simple possession is a solution, well, I don't know when the last time somebody was arrested for simple possession in the downtown east side of Vancouver, where policies like this have been pursued now for nearly 2 decades. And the consequences are ever higher rates of drug overdoses, of deaths, of social disorder, of lost hope and lost lives. So I think that we'd be happy to get into a more balanced discussion with the federal government about finding real solutions and not making a bad situation worse.
Thank you, Premier. Operator, can you please put through our final caller?
Ashley Joanno, Post Media.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. This first one is for the Premier. I appreciate that you won't be endorsing candidates in this leadership race, but because so many of the decisions that led to a conflict within the party were cabinet decisions, I wonder how you think cabinet ministers who want to be leader will be able to separate themselves from your legacy and the decisions that were made by cabinet.
Well, that will be up to them. I would point out a majority of the party members expressed confidence in my leadership, and I don't think party members, I don't think mainstream conservatives are anything but proud of the legacy of this government, having delivered on 90% of our election commitments, balanced the budget, leading the country in economic growth, leading Canada in job growth, with the strongest diversification of our economy we've seen in our modern history, with huge strategic victories like the ruling on the unconstitutionality of the No More Pipelines law, and the remarkable recovery of the energy industry defended by this government. I don't think they're want to criticize the legacy of historic investments in public services like healthcare, the $2 billion increase in healthcare funding that's permitted things like the increase in ICU beds here at the Brain Centre at U of A. So I think that conservatives, mainstream conservatives, are really enthused by those achievements, want to stay on that track. There are going to be some that want to relitigate COVID, and there's a small but intense group of people who get up out of bed every morning, certain that there is a globalist conspiracy to inflict what they regard as lethal vaccines on people. My judgment is there's no arguing or persuading people who have gone that far down the conspiracy rabbit hole, and I would just encourage all candidates to focus on the mainstream concerns of ordinary Albertans, which revolve around jobs, the economy, strong public services, and a strong province.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Ashley.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if you could comment on the decision by the Justice Minister recently to invoke the Police Act on the City of Edmonton. And I wonder why similar actions weren't taken for, say, Calgary, where there's also been a spike in crime. Why was Edmonton subject to this significant action on the part of the minister?
Well, the situation speaks for itself. The numbers have shown I think, unprecedented increase in violent crime in the streets of downtown Edmonton that requires urgent action, and that's why the minister gave that directive. It gives the city and the police commission, the Edmonton Police Service, flexibility about how to respond, but it tells them they must come back with an urgent and credible plan. And I know the minister, the Solicitor General, is closely examining similar trends in Calgary. They do not appear to be as severe as in downtown Edmonton, but he will take action if he deems it necessary to bring the similar focus to the violent crime situation that we're seeing in downtown Calgary. But clearly, it's a deeper problem with a higher growth in incidents of violent crime in downtown Edmonton, and urgent action must be taken.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our press.
I'm sorry to, again, U of A, no on-topic questions, but this was worth celebrating. And thank you for your patience and your great work and the additional $5 million you're going to be raising. Have you raised it yet? You have. Okay, well, why don't you add another 5? All right, and I've challenged Minister Panda to get this done as quickly as possible, right? On time, on budget. Thank you very much.